The misidentified false imprisonment and murder charge of John Thompson by Monica Coswell. Class Legal Aspect of Policing, and by Professor Lillian Ewan. The unlawful imprisonment of an individual is restraining the movement of an individual that prohibits the liberty of being free to do as he or she pleases. In the article of John Thompson, it tells a story about prosecutors deliberately charging him with a murder that he didn't commit. In 1984, a witness gave a clear picture of an offender as a black male that was 6 feet tall, and his hair was cut real close to his scalp, and his name was Kojak. In 1984, Mr. Thompson was 5 feet 8 inches and wore his hair in a large-shaped afro, and his name was not Kojak. The family of the victim was approached by a person claiming to know the person responsible for the murder and had witnesses that knew of the crime. Shortly afterward, John Thompson was arrested for the murder of Raymond Zuzah Jr. Couple of weeks earlier, in an armed robbery, a scuffle occurred in which the robber got blood of the victim's pants on the crime lab and analysis that was taken for the blood type. When Mr. Thompson's picture was seen in the media, the family identified him to law officers as the robber of their teenagers. For this punishment of the crime of armed robbery, Mr. Thompson was sentenced to 49 and a half years without the possibility of being paroled. The retributive and just desserts theory states, according to Ross, punishment is imposed because it's deserved, but punishment needs to fit the crime and must be appropriately to the harm caused. Mr. Thompson went on trial for the crime of murder. He was not allowed to testify due to conviction of the robbery charge, which could be used to denunciate his credibility and show a tendency for violence. This act prohibited Mr. Thompson from testifying in his own defense. The prosecutor said that with a lengthy sentence for robbery, the only reasonable thing to do was to give Mr. Thompson the death penalty for murder. Mr. Thompson was sentenced to death for the crime of murder. However, because Mr. Thompson was charged with armed robbery, does not say that he should be given the death penalty for murder. The law states that for a crime, the punishment is, according to Ross, is the same form of censure or sanction in response to a deviant act. In a court of law and order, the range of a certain form of punishment will reflect the norms that society feels fit the extent of the deviant act. If a defendant is found guilty of a crime, he is incarcerated to stop the criminal behavior and given a sentence that is appropriated for the crimes committed. For 18 years, Mr. Thompson sat in prison while appealing his case until all exhausted. With his execution date in the near future, a defense investigator came across an old microfiche file connected to the case of Mr. Thompson's armed robbery in the police crime lab. It showed that the committer of the armed robbery as having type B blood type, wherein Mr. Thompson's blood was type O. In the United States criminal justice system, a person is entitled to a fair trial and due process according to the false imprisonment of John Thompson. The U.S. Supreme Court determined that meeting those requirements demanded that the prosecutors provide potentially exculpatory proof in their possession to the defense. The exculpatory evidence is proof that is likely to prove the innocence of the defendants. The finding of the microfiche revealed that the commuter of the robbery could not have been Mr. Thompson. Second, it implied that the prosecutors withheld evidence from the defense. Third, the contradiction of witness statement was not brought up at the trial. All in all, proper ethics and the appropriate standards of using evidence to support Mr. Thompson's innocence was not done. 5 years prior to the finding of a former prosecutor on his dying bed, a former prosecutor told another prosecutor that had no ties to the case that he withheld the blood evidence test. The Louisiana Court of Appeals vacated both of Mr. Thompson's conviction of armed robbery and murder. In spite of being wrongfully identified and falsely imprisoned and accused of murder, Mr. Thompson is now a free man.